And so today, as Aviva mentioned, I'm going to speak about the history of saving a life in the Jewish law on a Shabbat, which is a very fascinating topic, not just from his historical perspective, but also it's something which has become very relevant in the current climate of Corona, and how many of us have had to negotiate and struggle with both our, need to protect ourselves and our safety, along with our religious practices, which occur in public, which sometimes we've seen can kind of conflict with that. So that's what we're going to do today. And to see that, so we're going to look at this idea, which is known as Pikuach, Nefesh, Docheh, Shabbat, that saving a life overrides observing a Shabbat. Now, I think for all of us here, or most of us, that would seem to be a very obvious and clear point. Obviously, you can violate a Shabbat to save a life. We are going to see that was actually not always the case for all Jews during all of the times. So we're going to see a real range of sources, beginning with some from Bayit Sheni, the Second Temple times, through rabbinic literature, Mishnah, Torah, Hefta, through the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. So of course we have to start at the beginning. So I will share my screen. Anyone doesn't have the sources in front of them, so you can have them. So while, as I said, most of us think, obviously one can break a Shabbat to save a life. This isn't actually such an obvious point from the Torah, because what is the punishment one would get if they purposely break a Shabbat? They get the death penalty. And this is said many, many times in the Torah. It says in Shemot, Lamed Aleph, Ushmartem et HaShabbat mechalaleha mot yumat. Whoever violates a Shabbat will be put to death. We even see a case in the Torah, in Sefer Bamidbar, where that actually occurs, where there's a person who's the Mikoshesh Eitzim, he is gathering wood during a Shabbat, and what's the punishment? Ragom oto ba'avanim. He gets killed in a pretty gory way as well. So if the punishment for breaking a Shabbat is the death penalty, why should you be allowed to break a Shabbat to save a life? And this, indeed, was not such obvious a point for many Jews during Bayit Sheni. And we actually have evidence to this fact. So one of these texts from the Second Temple times is a book from the time of the Maccabees, very appropriately called a Book of Maccabees. It's a Sefer Maccabim in Hebrew. I gave you the English. And it's here, it brings an account, and this is in the first book of Maccabees, and it's about after Matityahu famously refuses to offer a pagan sacrifice, and he kills a Jew who was willing to do so. He ran away to the mountains to hide from the Greeks, and the Greeks go to find him. And in that account, we are told the following incident that occurred. So this is in the first book of Maccabees, chapter 2. It writes as follows: and it was reported to the king's officers and to the troops in Jerusalem that those who had rejected the king's command had gone down to the hiding of places in the wilderness. So they ran away from Jerusalem. many of the Greeks pursued them and overtook them. They encamped opposite them and prepared for battle against them on the Sabbath day. So they're going to fight them on a Shabbat. They said to them, meaning the Greeks said to the Jews hiding, enough of this. Come out and do what the king commands, and you will live. But the Jews said back, we will not come out, nor will we do what the king commands, and so profane the Sabbath day. So they refused to come out and fight the Greeks, who were literally surrounding them, ready for war. And don't think that a miracle then happened, because the consequences of their refusal to fight were disastrous. It continues in 35. Then the enemy attacked them at once, but they did not retaliate. They neither threw stones nor blocked up their secret refuges. They said, let us all die in innocence. Heaven and earth are our witnesses that you destroy us unjustly. So the officers and soldiers attacked them on the Sabbath, and they died with their wives and their children and their animals, to the number of 1,000 persons. So they refused to fight on a Shabbat, and they were all killed. And they knew that would occur if they refused to fight, but they were willing to die rather than take up arms on a Shabbat. Now, this, however, was not seen as a great thing to do. And after this, Matityahu wanted to change the policy. So in next verse 39, it says, when Matityahu and his friends heard of it, they mourned deeply for them. They said to one another, if we all do as our kindred have done and do not fight against the Gentiles for our lives and our laws, they will soon destroy us from the earth. This kind of sounds like a later principle we hear of. Better to break one Shabbat so you can keep many Shabbatos. Meaning, if they kill us, if we don't fight, then there won't be any of us left to observe any Shabbat at all. So on that day, they came to this decision. Let us fight against anyone who attacks us on the Sabbath, so that we may not all die as they have died in their secret refuges. So this, at least here in this book, which is by the Maccabim, and it wants to make them look good as well, this is presented as an innovation on the part of Matityahu Maccabi, that there were Jews who wouldn't fight. And he said, you are allowed to fight on a Shabbat. Whether this was everyone or just them, we don't know, but we do see that there at least were some Jews who wouldn't. And this is also found in the second book of Maccabim. In the next source you have, chapter 6. This tells a different but very related incident of other Jews who wouldn't fight on a Shabbat. So here it says, towards the end, verse 11, again it says, others who had assembled in nearby caves to observe the seventh day in their secret were betrayed to Philip and all burned to death. In their respect for the holiness of that day, they again refrained from defending themselves. So we see that both of these works attest to at least some Jews who would rather give up their life than take up arms on a Shabbat. So what might you say? Maybe you could say, well, this isn't that they didn't want to generally give up their life rather than break a Shabbat. It's only during the case of a war, during a case of where there's a persecution. And why would one might say that? Those who've learned halacha know that a Jew only has to give up their life during a shat hashemad, when there's persecution. So maybe it's not that Jews or there were some Jews who, never would break a Shabbat to save a life, but only when they were specifically being persecuted. And then it's, about making Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name in public. So maybe one could say that. And then it's not that this is a break with the halacha, which we will later see. But when we look at other texts from Bayit Sheni, we see that this was not only in the case of a war. It's not only the case when Jews were being subject to persecution, but this is even found in regular cases of Shabbat during regular time. And we have evidence for this among the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm sure everyone knows that, in the caves by the Dead Sea were found, many scrolls, many of them books of Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, except for Megillat Esther. It's another lecture. But also many books not books, but works which were unique to the sect who lived in Qumran. And one such text has a short passage which prohibits using a certain implements to save a person on a Shabbat. So it says, and this is from a work called the Damascus document, and it's a work of halacha, so to speak, of how to live in the sect. So there we find, it says as follows, Nefesh Adam asher tipol el mayim mikom mayim ve'el makom al yalet ish b'sulam v'chaval u'kli. A person who falls into a place of water, let no man bring him up with a ladder, a rope, or a kli, a vessel. Now, what is the reason for this? It looks like it's some sort of prohibition to use an object which has not been designated to use on a Shabbat. Meaning it looks a lot like our halacha. You can't use a ladder because it's not used for permitted uses on a Shabbat. You can't use a rope because these are not objects which you have set aside for use on a Shabbat, which is cool because muksa is not written in the Torah. So we see that even non-rabbinic Jews pre-rabbinate time have this idea that you can't handle certain objects on a Shabbat, even though it's not written in the Torah. So the fact that this is what lays behind this, meaning you see a person fall into a pit on a Shabbat, you have a ladder, you can help them. Says this text, you're not allowed to lower the rope. You're not allowed to lower the ladder to help a person from drowning on a Shabbat. You just have to stand there and just say, sorry, I know you're in that pit of water. I'm just going to have to let you stay there until Shabbat is over. And either you will be okay and you'll make it out, or that's just a risk we're going to have to take because we can't break a Shabbat. Even to just give you a ladder to get out of that pit. Now, the fact that that's what seems to lay behind this is because we have another text, also from the same work, which allows you to use clothing to save a person who falls into a pit of water. So in the next text you have, V'im nefesh adam hi asher tipol el hamayim b'yom haShabbat. So again, if a person is the one who has fallen into the water on the Sabbath, yishlach lo et bigdo la'aloto bo. What are you allowed to do? You can't give them a rope or a ladder, but you can throw them your clothing in order to draw them out. But ukli lo yisa Haloto b'yom haShabbat. But again, you can't use a kli. Maybe because maybe it's not, like I said, maybe you're just not allowed to carry. Whereas clothing, you're not carrying. You can wear a clothing even if there's no Erev. So again, we see that these are halachot, even though they're not written in the Torah. All Jews seem to have described to them, even pre-Mishnah. But also we see that they're not allowing a Jew to save another person's life, even if it's just about, carrying or handling a rope or a ladder. But better to let the person, it seems, drown or not make it out. And we also find in Josephus that he also writes about various Jews who would not violate Shabbat to save their life. He talks about in the next text in the book of Antiquities, and he says that Ptolemy seized upon Jerusalem, and he specifically did so on a Shabbat because, just go to the part where I underline, while the Jews did not oppose him, for they did not suspect him to be their enemy, and he gained it thus because they were free from suspicion of him, and because on that day they were at rest. It was a Shabbat, and he in the next text, I think I gave you, he also brings the same account that we find in the book of Maccabees about the Jews, about the Jews who would not fight back and were killed as in the consequence. So we don't have to read that again, but it's here for you. So we see that it's far from given that it's, for every Jew in all times, it's that was okay to break a Shabbat to save life. And that we can see that there were at least some who would not, and who would rather give up their own life, or rather, not save another's life than break a Shabbat. Yet, when we come to rabbinic law, this is not even a question. Shabbat may absolutely be broken to save a life. Now, when we look at the Mishnah, throughout all the Mishnah, it doesn't even speak about this as, at great end. In fact, it's really deceptively brief on it. And it just here and there brings a few Mishnayot, which just work with the assumption that, of course, you can save a life. And it's only a question of what if you don't even know that there's a life to be saved. And it's really a suffix. And that's what we find in 2 out of 3 of the Mishnayot, which speak about it. So the first Mishnah, at least the first one that I brought for you here, is from Masechet Ta'anit, the tractate about fast. And so it says, so this is about when do you call out or blow the shofar? It's not clear what this means on a Shabbat. So it says the Mishnah, al heilu matri'im b'Shabbat. For the following, you can either call out, or again, it's unclear if it means to call out in prayer or to blow the shofar. But for the following, you can call out or blow the shofar on a Shabbat. What are they? Al ir shehikifu ha-goyim, for a city that is surrounded by non-Jews, enemies coming to wage war. O nahar, or a city that risks being flooded. Al haspina hamitarefet biyam, or a ship being cast about in the sea. So one thing I just like about this text is this is very much as opposed to what we saw in the book of Maccabees, where Jews would not break a Shabbat when they were being surrounded by the Greeks. Here, yeah, you can call out break a Shabbat if your city is being surrounded by non-Jewish armies. So very much not what we saw the Jews doing in the book of Maccabees. So this really can be seen as a contrast to that. Our next Mishnah is in Yuma, the tractate about Yom Kippur, and it says the following: Mishnafla alav mapulet. So you have a wall of hell down. Seems to happen a lot back then. Safek kusham, safek enosham. You don't know if there is a person underneath the crumbled wall or not. And even if there is a person there, safek achai, safek me. You don't know if they're still alive or not. Safek oved kochavim, safek yeshon. Even if they are alive, you don't know if it's a non-Jew or a Jew. What do? What's the law? So you don't even know if this is an absolute a case of saving a life. Nevertheless, mitzachim alav et hagal. You can move the rubble. You can move the stones. If you see the person is still alive, you can continue to move the rubble. If not, but if they're not alive anymore, then you leave it. And this actually has a sugya which touches on how do you define when someone's no longer alive or not, which is about organ donations. That's another topic as well. But again, what did we see in the book of Maccabees? That Jews would not even move rocks to put in the opening of the caves to protect themselves. Here, you don't even know if there's a person there, but in the event that there is, you move the rock. We don't play games when it comes to life. And our last case in the Mishnah, which speaks about this, finally is in the place where we would expect it to be a Shabbat. And this, again, it's not a clear case of a person is going to die. It's again a safek. And what's the safek? A woman giving birth. So it says in the Mishnah in Shabbat, Parakut Chet Mishnah Gimel, so you are not allowed to help an animal give a birth on a holiday, but you can give them a food. So that's an animal. But miyaldin et ha'isha b'Shabbat. But you do midwife. You do, help a woman give a birth on a Shabbat. V'korin la chachma mimakom lemakom. You may even call the chachma. That's the midwife. You can call her even from your city to a different one, meaning even though it's outside of the Tichum Shabbat, even if it's outside what you are allowed to walk on a Shabbat. And then it says straight out, U'machalalin aleha et ha-Shabbat. And you are allowed to break a Shabbat for her as well. So again, now, although many women did not survive birth back then, it wasn't everyone, so it's not for sure she will not live. Hopefully she would. She had a 50 chance of making it through. But yet we see, again, that even where it's just safek, even where there's just a chance a person may not live, you can break a Shabbat for them. So it's not a question for the Mishnah. And it's even allowed where it's not an absolute case of Pikuach Nefesh. It's even allowed where a person may live, they may not. There might not even be a person there, and yet a Chazal tell you to break a Shabbat. Now, while in the Mishnah, this seems, very obvious and clear, it's not necessarily so. And the Mishnah here is almost hiding some of the issues or some of the discomforts that people might have had with this. And while we don't see it in the Mishnah, we do see it in other texts from the rabbis of the Mishnah, other texts from this time, namely the Tosefta, which is the next source that you have. And that, again, it's not the Mishnah, but it's from the same time. And it has halachot from the same rabbis who appear in the Mishnah. Whether it predates the Mishnah or post-dates it, that's not clear. But in this case, we have a lot more halachot and a lot more cases which address this issue than what was brought down in the Mishnah. And some of the cases are very colorful, and they really go into great detail just to show how much you are allowed to break a Shabbat, even if it's just a chance of a life. And this may underscore the fact that not everyone felt so okay with this halacha that you can break a Shabbat to save a life. So let's just look at a few of them. So first we have, and again, this is in Tractate Shabbat as well. And here we have what's found in Yuma. So in Halacha Yud Aleph, it here says, mevhachim al safek nefesh b'Shabbat. Again, what we saw before, you can move the rubble of a fallen wall, even if it's just a safek, even if there might be a person there whose life you might save. And it goes on, v'hazariz hareze nishu abba. And don't wait. Don't say, well, maybe I shouldn't. It's a Shabbos. Maybe, I'll wait to see. No, don't wait. You are praised if you move quickly. And ein sarich litol rishut mi beit adin. You don't have to ask whether you're allowed to or not from the court. Act. Don't ask. And then again, and here we're going to see something which again echoes what we saw from the Bayit Sheni text. Okay, so what's a case of this? Nafal layam, a person falls into the sea. The ein yachol la'alot, and they're not able to get out. And that's very much like what we saw here in the Dead Sea Scrolls. A person there fell, and they're not able to get out. There was, sorry, I can't move this ladder to help you. But here in the Tosefta, in Halacha, if there's a person who falls into the water, or a tabaon is binato bayam, or their ship is sinking in the sea, and again, einachol la'alot, and they are not able to get out. Your dim uma alino tomisham. You go down and you help them out. And again, ein sarich litol rishut mi abeitin. You don't have to ask whether this is okay or not. We are telling you it is okay. And the halachot go on. I skipped one, halacha yud agimel, which again is going to really kind of trace with what we saw in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Nafal lebor, a person falls into a pit, the ein yachol la'alot, and they're not able to get out. With the color here. Your din okrin lo chulia. What can you do? Take a stick for them. This is not like the people at Qumran who wouldn't allow you to move any object that you are not normally allowed to move on Shabbat. Here, take anything. V'yordin uma'alin otomisham. Help them out. And once again, in sarich litol rishut abeitin. You don't have to ask whether this is okay or not. I love the next case because this happened to my daughter. A child goes into a room, or in this case, a house, they can't get out. I'm glad to see this happened to people back then as well. So what do? No, it's a kid. You don't know they're gonna die. Hopefully they won't. They can wait a few hours. But no, says the halacha, shovrim lo dilatot habayit. You should break down the doors. Ve'afilu hayu shel even, even if they're made of rock. Meaning again, unlike the Jews in Maccabim who wouldn't even move a rock to save their life, here you can break a wall, no matter what it is made of. Sorry, break a door, just to get a child out, even though they are not in any clear danger. Nevertheless, don't take a chance with a life. And once again, ein sarich l'tol rishut abetin. You don't have to ask whether it's okay or not. And it goes on. You can put out a fire. And again, ein sarich l'tol rishut abetin. Don't ask. Don't wait and say, well, maybe I'll go out on its own. Maybe we should wait. It's Shabbos. No, you act and you don't ask. Halacha yud adal is if you're bitten by a nachash, a scorpion. You can call a doctor to help you. And again, you don't have to ask. You're allowed to heat up hot water for a sick person. That's halacha tet above. Okay, so we've said what you are allowed to do, and now it doesn't end here. It now brings several jurashot, proofs from the Torah that you are allowed to break a Shabbat to save a life. And it brings not one, but many. So let's look through some of them. So this now goes into the next halacha, tet zayin. Now that we know what you are allowed to do, now we need to know, well, why are you allowed to? How do we know you're allowed to break a Shabbat in all these cases which is described? Now we'll say this is even learned from the Torah. So halacha tet zayin, Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Minay Pikuach Nefesh Docheh et Shabbat. How do we know that you can break a Shabbat to save a life? So it says, Shanamar, it says in the Torah, Et Shabtotai Tishmaru. You must observe my Shabbat. So then it goes into ask, Yachol Milavo Avodah Upikuach Nefesh. Maybe you would think that you even have to observe a Shabbat when it's at the expense of a person's life. That's what they'd be left with. Is there Pikuach Nefesh? Hamad Lomar, so the Torah says, however, but, which means to halach. That means to divide it up. Pe'amim she'ata shovet. There are times when you do have to rest, but pe'amim, I have to move my screen here to see it. Pe'amim she'ata shovet. But there are times that you do not rest. And when is that? So when you do a brit milah, and when you save a life. And then it goes on a little bit on this one. And then just skip to, okay, then we could skip to the next halacha yud zayin. Then it brings more proofs for how we know you can break Shabbat to save a life. It says Rabbi Acha Mar Mishain Rabbi Akiva. So he brings Rabbi Akiva says, he brings the pasuk, which says that if a person comes to your home, you can kill them. When they are a person breaks into your home, when it's clear they want to kill you. So it says you don't really know they want to kill you. And it says Haviomeras, that says fake. And so if you can kill, if you can break the Torah rule to not kill to save your life, how much more so can you break Shabbat to save a life as well? So that's the logic of that drasha. And then it brings in the then the third line here, it brings one that many of us know about. It says, ha, and I'll just show you where I am here. Zion. Here we go. Ha lo nitnu mitzvot liYisrael ella lachayot bahem. The Torah was only given to us that we live by them. Shana Amar, as it is written, Asher yaseh otam ha'adam v'chai bahem. V'chai bahem v'lo sheyamut bahem. We are supposed to live by the Torah and not die from the Torah. And it says, "Ein kol davar omed b'fnei Pikuach Nefesh chutz me'avodah zarah v'gilui arayot v'shfichut hamid." So only 3 times that you don't save your life, and that's if it's going to kill another person. You don't save your life. You don't kill another person to save your life. You don't worship avodah zarah to save your life. And you don't engage in hesed relations to save your life as well. And then this is what I was alluding to before. So when does this apply? Shalo b'shat hashmad, when it's not the time of persecution. Aval b'shat hashmad, but if it is a time of persecution, afilu mitzvah kala shebekhalot Adam notain nafsho alat. And even if then you should give up your life rather than violate even the highest hira. But again, that's not what we saw in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There was any time a person would not break a Shabbat to save a life. So we see that not only did it bring many cases and many real life ones just to show, yeah, it's fine, don't pass, act, everything's okay, even if you're not sure, even if there might not even be a person there, even if it's a person who's not in a real clear threat, you don't ask, you act, you break a Shabbat. But now we have to bring several drashot, biblical proofs just to show, hey, and everyone, it's not just us who's saying this. This can even be proved from the Torah as well. And it's not the only work by the rabbis of the Mishnah, by the Tanaim, where they bring many proofs to show that it is okay to break a Shabbat to save a life. When we look in yet different work of the Tanaim, the rabbis of the Mishnah, we find not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 6 different proofs to show that you are allowed to break a Shabbat to save a life. And it brought many of the ones that we already saw before. If you can kill a person and if you can violate murder to save your life, of course you can break a Shabbat to save your life. We saw if you could do a Brit Milah on a Shabbat, then which is only one part of your body. Of course you can save your whole body on a Shabbat. And we saw Ach et Shabtotai Tish Roru, but you must observe my Shabbat. So but means there are times when you do have to observe it, but there are also times when you do not have to. And then we see 2 more that we have not yet seen. Number 5 here, Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya Omer. Hari Omer Ushmartem et HaShabbat ki kodesh hi lachem. So it says in the Torah you have to keep my Shabbat because it is holy to you. Lachem Shabbat Misura. Shabbat was given to you. The iyata misurin leShabbat. But you do not give your life for a Shabbat. So that's another proof to show. See, this is in the Torah. This isn't some new idea that you can break a Shabbat to save a life. And one last one here by Rebbe Natan. It says, "B'shamru b'nei Yisrael et haShabbat lasot et haShabbat ledoro hatam." So the Israelites observe a Shabbat for dorotam, generations. Chilea alav Shabbat achat. It's like what we said before. Break one Shabbat kedei sheyishmor Shabbatot harbe, so that you will be able to observe many Shabbatot in your long life. So we see that Chazal felt a need to bring many proofs to this halacha that you're allowed to break a Shabbat to save a life. And on one hand, now that we know, some of the background, and that not everyone felt that this was so muvan me'elav. Not all Jews felt comfortable with the idea that you can break a Shabbat, and there were many who were willing to give up their life rather than to do so. So we can see why there'd be a need to say, no, it is okay to break a Shabbat, and bring all these cases that could come up in everyday life, and then to say, and it's not only us, we can bring you all these different proofs from the Torah to show that even according to the Torah, it is okay to break Shabbat to save life. And many of them work with both the Pikuach as well as, an underlying rationale. Like, again, better to break one Shabbat, so you'll be able to have many, many more to observe. Now, the fact that many proofs are brought when not everyone agrees with a halacha, that is evidenced in other halachot as well, and hence the title of my shir, and how this relates to this time of year, counting the Omer. And we won't look at this in aside, but we know, what do we do now? Every single night we count Omer, Sefira to Omer. And when do we count from? Mimacharat HaShabbat. So how do we understand Mimacharat HaShabbat? Motzei Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. It's after the first day of the Chag. That's when we begin to count. And why? Because even though here it says Mimacharat HaShabbat, which one might think would mean, here we go, Mimacharat Shabbat. You might think that means Motzei Shabbat. There's another place where it writes about this, where it's Shava Shavuot Tesapor Lach Neachel Chamesh B'Kamat Tachel L'Spor Shava Shavuot. It just says you count as 7 weeks, and it says that it's after the first day of the Chag and not the Shabbat. So that's how we hold this halacha, that it's Motzei Yom Tov Rishon of the Chag Pesach. However, not everyone during Bayit Sheni agreed with this, and we know this not only from other texts, but even from the Mishnah, which writes about other groups who said, no, we take Mimacharat HaShabbat literally. And they would count as Sefira from Motzei, the first Shabbat, after Pesach. And the Mishnah, and here in the Sugya here, it writes about the Baitu Sin, whoever that is. Some people have said maybe the Baitu Sin is the Eshenes, a group during Bayit Sheni time. There are many groups of Jews during Bayit Sheni. I didn't all get along. When we say Sinat Chinam, to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, that really is the case. A lot of different Jews who were really at odds with each other. So there were others who said, Teret Achar HaShabbat. They would count Sefira from Motzei, the first Shabbat, after Pesach, and not when we do it, Motzei, the first day of the Yom Tov. And once again here, even though the Mishnah doesn't speak so much about this, but just kind of says what it is. Here, once again, in a work of Midrash Halacha, which is again from the same time as the rabbis of the Mishnah, it brings a lot of different proofs to show that no, mi macharat Hashabbat means mi macharat Yom Tov. It's not what they say; it's what we say. And again, it brings not one proof here, Aleph, or two, that, but it brings three, four, proof after proof to show we are right. Mi macharat Hashabbat means what we say. It means mi macharat Yom Tov, and not mi macharat Shabbat, the way the other group said. So we do see another case where there's a halacha which not everyone agreed on, and so Hazal maybe had a need to show, okay, but look, we can prove this over and over again in the Torah. So we see that here in the controversy around Sefirat HaOmer, and maybe our case too is an example of that, where because not every Jew felt, is it really okay to break a Shabbat to save a life? And we know there were people who gave up their life because they didn't agree with this. So Hazal felt a need to say, it is okay, even in this case, and let us show you all the ways that we can prove that it is okay from the Torah. We can bring this pasuk and this one and this one. So that is definitely, what could be at work here, and why there's so much need here to prove it is okay, and why there's such a need to bring all the cases that could arise. I see there's a question flashing here. Okay, so I will read it before I move on to the next one. Oh wait, or is that Aviva? Do you want to share that? So I don't need to share that because everyone sees it. Okay. Or is that a question you're asking? I'm not
sure. It's more of a comment that you can feel free to address, like what
Well, it is actually what I wanted to say is that I don't think we only need to say that this is only a response to the historical reality of Second Temple Jews. But I think this also taps into, I'm going to use your words here, a real discomfort people often have when it comes to, certain halachot, which are very much define who we are. So when it comes to Shabbos, there's very few things like a Shabbat, which truly mark us off as being a Jew, being an Orthodox Jew. It's just one of those markers, and it seems that it always was. So it's something which is so close to our heart, both on an individual level and on our just communal level. That's what it means to be a Jew in so many ways. So I think there is a real discomfort of people sometimes feel with this. And I think we really saw it last year, when shuls were all closed. And it was really, really hard to not go to shul. Many people, and it was really hard for me. It's so much of our religious, everyday life is going to shul. So much of what ties us together as a kehillah, as a community. So much of what marks our day. You go to shul every morning and afternoon and night. It really, marks your day in this religious way, and to not go felt, obviously, we saw it was very hard for large swaths of the Orthodox population. Many people opened them illegally or went anyways, or we found ways to work around it. And what we see is a Hazal understand that. They see it's really hard. If your kid locks themselves in the bathroom for a for example, you can find ways to rationalize why you don't need to break a Shabbat. It says a Chazal, no, you need to. Whoever the has hariz mishu abba. Don't wait. We know it is very hard to break some halachot, but we know that. But yet you need to. The ein sarich should abating. You don't have to even ask. When it comes to a life, we don't take a chance and we act. And so this was both a real reality that people actually, did live, but also I think it does respond to a certain discomfort that many people might have with breaking a certain halachot when there's a shafek. It's not a clear threat. Nevertheless, halacha says you have to, and saving a life always comes first. And we see how far this came when the halacha is codified in the Bavli as well, and how far we take. You save a life, even if it's just a shafek, even if it's not a clear, present danger. So on the Mishnah we saw before, we guarding a woman giving birth, where we saw you're allowed to break a Shabbat for her. So then the Bavli here delves into, well, how do you know? How do you know when you can start to break a Shabbat for her? So it says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. So says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Chaya kol zaman shehakever patuach. Bein amrat tzricha, bein lo amrat tzricha, mechalin alet et Shabbat. A woman who's giving a birth, whether her, the kever, the grave is the uterus, whether she is, dilated or not. I mean, sorry, as long as it's open, as long as she is, as long as she's dilated, so it would seem this means whether or not she says, yeah, I need help, I need you to break a Shabbat, you break it for her. You don't wait. And then it says, well, maybe when the uterus closes, then you don't violate Shabbat. But then it says, you know what? We go with the more lenient view. So skip to the last line here to navigate all the different boxes open. Okay, so go to Amarle. Go to the last line. Hilchas tag keman. So who do we hold like the halacha? When her kever, when her uterus is closed, do we break a Shabbat for her or not? So we said halacha kemar zutra. We go like Mar Zutra, who said you do, because safek nefasho lehakel. We are always lenient when it comes to a risk to one's life. And since there is a slight risk, we don't play a game, we break a Shabbat. So we've gone from Bayit Sheni, where there were people willing to give up their life rather than violate the Shabbat, to this last statement, which is, even if a woman says she doesn't need you to break a Shabbat for her, you break a Shabbat. You don't listen. And the final three words really encapsulates rabbinic law on the issue of hafek nefashot lehakel. We don't take a chance when it comes to life. And we break halacha, even a really severe halacha like Shabbos, which would get the death penalty were you to break it purposely. Nevertheless, you can break it to save a person's life. And this is just so a real end to the time of Bayit Sheni as well, which, whatever you know about it, I'm sure you know there was a time of a lot of blood shed. Think of the people out in the Sahara. They all gave up their lives, and on their way there, they killed a whole bunch of of Jews as well. A lot of killing, a lot of blood shed, and Chazal introduce a new time where Safek Nefashot Lehakel, V'chai Bahem, V'lo She'amut Bahem. And so that's the trajectory of halacha, and I hope that can also give us continue to chizuk as we go through these times where it is hard to not always do the halachot or the ones the way we want to, but better now to not do it for a short time, hopefully it'll be a short time, so that we'll have many, many years where we can do things the way we want to in a public way, in person. And so thank you all so much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schick. Excuse me, this was so interesting. We'd love to hear any questions that any of you might have or any comments in response. I shared my thought in the chat box earlier, which is, along with, appreciating the value of Shmirat Shabbat and the strong consequences that would come with being Mechalel Shabbat, and then also understanding the development of rabbinic law pertaining to what is and is not acceptable to violate Shabbat in relation to saving a life. It's also interesting to think about what this might mean to a person in a position like Chaval Itzlan, who's in a position needing to be saved, right? What it must mean for them to know how important and how valuable they are, that they are worth it, that they are worth, another person making them a priority as their mitzvah over another mitzvah as strong as Shmirat Shabbat. I think that can do a lot for the human spirit and really be very elevating to them. And that's I had never really thought about that before until you just presented your, thematic analysis of these sources.
Wow, that's such a beautiful point. Thank you so much. Yes, and it's true. And I think especially women's, just think of that. There's a Mishnah on a woman giving birth, and different cultures attribute different values to people and different kinds of people, and so even a woman in that stage, she's worth it, and to break a Shabbat for her, to help her.
Yeah, and hopefully that would be an important step in their healing process, psycho and in a psycho-emotional way, to know that there is this carved out sacred space for them in Torah law.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, it seems like, does anyone else have any questions or comments to share? If not, then I'll say thank you.
I would like to ask a question.
Sure, please.
See, you said that kever is the word for uterus.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. Why? I mean, it sounds so.
Because of miscarriages. So the uterus, and this isn't the case in Masechet Nida, which talks about, most of it is about impurities that arise when a woman, is in different states. And one of them is when she miscarries. So because the uterus, that is one of the words used for it. But it is because of that, because it would be a kever to, the aborted fetus.
When a woman menstruates every month,
right,
she loses a potential fetus. Potential.
There are lots of words used for the uterus, but that is one of them. And maybe that's also because that's what men.
I've just never seen that before.
Yeah, it's used. Right. I mean, it is used throughout Masechet Nida. It's also found in the Shana, so it is used there as well.
Interesting.
You know, not only did many women not survive childbirth, many babies had not survived either. So one of the most powerful texts I've ever seen in my work is wills discovered at the Cairo Geniza of women while they were expecting. They'd write a will who should care for their children should they not live through it. And they knew their husband would likely marry someone else, and they didn't want an evil stepmother. There's a reason also there's a lot of stories about evil stepmothers, because mothers used to die a lot. You had a 50-50 chance of not making it through childbirth. So whoever says we should go back to good old days never learned history of medicine. Very grateful for modern medicine. The past 100 years. Not even 100, less than 100 years.
Thank you so much. It was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Miriam, for bringing that up. That was very interesting.
Yeah, it's a sad point. Thank you so much. And again, I really appreciate being able to speak to all from the comfort of my home in Yerushalayim. And Bezrat Hashem, next time we'll be in person.
Amen.
We should all
Looking
be
forward
able
to
to
it.
meet again in person.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schick, and thank you to everyone for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.